Hey folks, welcome to the channel. I'm very excited about this build. I've been planning it for a long time. You've seen me do copper, but now we're going to do a knife with Damascus and 24 karat gold.
I love gold!
Close to $5,500, $5,500 worth of gold. We're going to be putting this with some feather Damascus into this knife. Let's get at it. So let's talk about this construction and how I'm going to put this together. First, I'm going to make some Damascus for the cladding. Then we're going to layer gold on the inside, and the core is going to be 80 CRV2 high carbon steel. That's also going to be our entire cutting edge. This is a cross section, of course. And when the bevels are ground into the blade, that's going to expose this line of gold along the edge of the blade. It should look pretty cool. Now let's make the Damascus for the cladding. After a little bath in kerosene to aid with the forge weld, into the forge it goes. The graphic in the corner will help you understand what's happening in each forging session. It's a cross section, you looking at the end of the billet. Now that we've spent 3 heats just forge welding this billet together into one solid block, now we're going to start drawing it out. It's going to look like the picture in the corner. So we've drawn the billet out and forged it down, but it still has straight layers. Now it's time to impart a pattern. So we're going to knock in the corners with the squaring dies. Now I've rotated the billet 90 degrees with the squaring dies on the top, and now we're going to smash it down flat. I use this method so we don't twist the billet. I've put kiss blocks here just so we can get a constant thickness all the way down the billet. After we press this flat and draw it out, we're going to get something that looks like this. Here we go, forge session number 2. Just like before, we're going to forge weld these together in 3 heats and then start drawing them out, and it'll look something like this. This actually isn't the first time I've tried this technique with gold. The first time I tried using 10 karat gold because it was cheaper, but that didn't turn out well. So I had a Patreon member, David, reach out to me and offer to front the money for the gold to try it again. So this knife is for him. Thanks, David. I appreciate your willingness to let me try this again. I'm more than a little nervous, though. All right, here we go. Forge session number 3. I think you folks get the idea by now. We're going to turn this pattern and draw it out into this. I said in the beginning we were going to do a half feather on each side. A feather pattern involves stacking up the billet really tall and driving a wedge through it. So now we're preparing to stack that billet up. So I'm making this billet wide enough so that we can drive a wedge through, and we'll be taking slices off of it and stacking it up high. And it'll look something like this. Here's our billet cut up, stacked up tall, and welded together. The first thing we need to do is forge weld this stack together so it doesn't split apart on us. We want to make sure the stack is nice and square and flat on all sides so it doesn't bow when we drive the wedge through it. Now it's time to drive the wedge through the stack. This drags down the center layers and it'll look like the graphic in the corner. Okay, so we got our feather all split. That's the way it was, split down the center. For this build, we're actually going to be doing a half feather on each side. So we don't need to forge weld them back together, but I do need to draw these out this way. And the problem with feather is when you try to draw it out this way, they tend to split along here. So what I'm going to do is just forge weld these pieces on here first, and then draw them out. I'm not worried about this side because this is kind of laid over itself, but we are going to forge weld those pieces just to protect those edges. Now I'm forge welding the 1084 to the half feather, and I'm going to draw that out. I'm only showing you on one side. They're both the same. You don't need to see both. Now I'm moving to the rolling mill just to get a constant thickness down the billet. This is really good for doing that. Well, here are the two feathers, each half ground. I'll zoom in here so you guys can see the pattern. So pretty cool. I'm definitely happy with it. Alright folks, I've got my two feather pieces. This is a piece of 80 CRV for our core, and then the two pieces of gold. Remember folks, this is $5,500 worth of gold. We don't want to screw this up. So now, there is our billet. Let's go get it welded up, and then we'll get it in the forge and hope and pray. Here we go for our fourth and final forging session. The melting point of 24 karat gold is right around 1950 degrees Fahrenheit, which is really close to copper, so this should be about the same process. Since this is going to be a chef knife, and my stock is only 1.5 inches wide, I need to fuller it out and widen it, because I want the blade to be 2 inches. And remember folks, we're not really forge welding the gold here. It's more like brazing. This brazing bond is really strong, 70,000 psi in tensile strength. You'd destroy the knife before you shear the layers apart. Now that we have the width we want, I'm taking it to the rolling mill and drawing it out, and this will give us a constant thickness. I started with a 1.5 by 6 inch stack, and now I've got it to about 2.5 inches by 13. Not too bad. So here is the billet. This is after normalization, some thermocycles, and an anneal. And it is about 13 inches or 330 millimeters long, and with the welds it's 2.5 inch or 60 millimeters wide, but there's weld on it, so it'll actually be a little narrower. But that's great. This is perfect for the knife. Now what I'm going to do is put the profile on here. I'm actually going to cut it out, and then we're going to go directly to the heat treat, because I don't want to risk doing anything on this like surface grinding or anything, because I don't want it to delaminate, and it's an expensive billet, so we're going to take all precautions. The blade was heated to 1530 degrees and quenched in Park's AAA quench oil. Everything looked really great coming out of the quench, but just in case, I put it between my aluminum plates just to finish it off and make sure it was nice and straight. Well, folks, there it is, all heat treated. This means I'm out of the danger zone. It looks really good. The gold's really centered. The core is centered, I should say. Yeah. So now I just need to be careful not to overheat it, because of course it's heat treated. But I'm pretty happy. Here it is after a little surface grinding. It's just over 1/8 of an inch, which is fine because I'm going to take that down quite a bit on when I do the bevels. But we're ready to put this false edge in. You can see the gold here. If I can zoom in a little bit, you can see the gold in it, which is very cool. Now it's time to put in the bevels. I've scribed a center line, and now I'm just going to work towards that. Since the blade is already hardened, this took longer than usual, of course. I also needed to make sure I didn't overheat it at any point. We don't want to lose the temper. Well, here's something you don't see every day. This is gold dust pooling on my rest as I'm grinding. Stay tuned till the end, where I'm going to pan the grindings and get some gold. Here's the blade after initial grinding. It's only been ground to 36 grit, but I did a little test etch and it just looks amazing. I'm so happy with it. It's dead straight. The edge is pretty fine already. So we're going to take it to 120 and a 240 and then probably the disc grinder, and then on to hand sanding. But so far, really, really happy. So I got this sanded to 800. Looks really good, no scratches in it. It's actually going to go all the way up to 1500, maybe even 2000. But I've got it enough so that I can start the bolster. I can slot the bolster. And the reason I like to take it up to 800, because if you only go to 220 or something like that, you slot this, then by the time you fit it and sand it, you've taken off a little more here. So going to 800 is fine. You're not going to take off too much with 1000 or 1500. So let's go to the mill, slot this, we'll get ready for our bolster. Now that we've got our bolster, I'm going to switch back to the forge and forge a piece of Damascus for the pommel nut. This is long and thin. That's because we're going to be turning this on the lathe. First I'm drilling and tapping one end. That's going to screw into the tang. Then we're going to take it down with the lathe and add a little step, and that's going to give us our mechanical connection. This is a beautiful ash burl I saved just for this project. This is from Oleg at knife-wood.com. So if you're looking for wood, go check it out. Now I'm getting ready to add the all thread to the tang, and this is what the pommel nut is going to screw into. Alright, so now let's assemble this knife for the first time. I've done a rough profiling on the handle, slotted the front. I drilled the piece for the pommel nut. Actually did this on the mill just to make this pretty accurate. And you saw me get the all thread on here. So now let's put it together. And I've left this big thick piece here. All of this will get ground flush afterwards, but for now it's just nice to... There. Now with everything fitting well together, I can move on to contouring the handle. Well folks, it's now time to do the 24 karat solid gold inlay into the bolster. We're going to be doing a stripe of 24 karat gold around the edge of the bolster. We're going to be using the engraver for that. The first step to doing wire inlay is to take the engraver and engrave a channel all the way around. That's what the gold's going to fit in. Now I'm creating little dovetails, and that's what the gold is going to stick into so it doesn't come out. And now using a brass rod, we just press the gold into the channel. So there's how the gold inlay turned out after sanding. So looks pretty good. Time to put my maker's mark on the blade. We're getting close now to the finish. We're going to just put it together, and then I'm going to have to kind of just sand this to match, and then do final hand sanding on the handle. Then we're going to etch it, coffee, and we should be done. Doing the final buffing on the handle is one of my favorite things. It really makes it pop. Time to etch this blade. Just going to clean it off with some rubbing alcohol. Make sure it's nice and clean. No fingerprints. And we're going to wet it with some distilled water. So it's been about 8 minutes. Let's take a look. Not too bad. Now we're just going to sand it with some 1500 and it's going to go back in. After this, it's going to go into some hot coffee overnight to get the edge nice and black.